This is our news, the weekend edition, and on the broadcast tonight, police investigating an apparent homicide after a man is found dead. Plus, the F&M chairman moves to defend the Prime Minister over his reported stake in Bahamas fast ferries. And the former Aviation Minister supports the Prime Minister's pledge for a probe into the search and rescue efforts following a recent plane crash.
Our news is brought to you by Alive.
Good evening, I'm Andrew Knowles, and thanks so much for joining us. Topping the news, the country recording its latest homicide after a man was found dead this morning, believed to be the victim of a shooting. Police were called to the scene through a tracked road off Ineas Jumper Corner around 6 a.m. Sunday morning. And when they arrived, they discovered the man lying unresponsive.
The only information we are working with is that some resident from this area is walking in this location where they saw this male lying unresponsive. In conducting additional inquiries, we received reports that shortly after 6 a.m., persons heard what appeared to be a gunshot sound. As a result, 911 was called. We did further investigations, and we discovered that the body had an apparent gunshot wound to the upper torso.
Now, Chief Superintendent Solomon Cash says the investigation is in its early stages and they are trying to gather as much information as possible to determine just what happened. And while they were unable to release the identity of the victim, Cash says he appears to be in his mid-20s.
We are uncertain as to the motive behind this latest homicide, but we are appealing to members of the public who live in this area or who may have been passing the area during the time of the incident to contact the police at 911 and 919.
Meantime, police here in the capital are also investigating a shooting that's left one man nursing wounds in hospital. Police say it was shortly before 9 last night when a man was standing in a yard on 2nd Street, Coconut Grove. The man reportedly got into an argument with another man who shot him before running away. The shooting victim was taken to hospital where he was, at last report, listed in stable condition. Meantime, police also making probes into a stabbing incident that occurred last night shortly after 10. Officers responded to Bay Street and Elizabeth Avenue after receiving reports of a man lying in the street with injuries. He was taken to hospital where he is listed in critical condition. Investigations into both incidents continue. Well, a 43-year-old U.S. male citizen is expected to be charged in a magistrate's court this week for failing to declare the more than $50,000 he was carrying in cash. According to reports, the man presented himself to a U.S. Border Control officer at the Lynden Pindling International Airport on Saturday and did not declare the true amount of cash he was carrying in his possession. When officers conducted a search of the man, they discovered $51,444. He was subsequently taken into custody and handed over to the police. Well, the F&M chairman is defending Prime Minister Dr. Hubert Minnis after he was called out in the House of Assembly for his involvement in Bahamas fast ferries and speculation that the company is seeking a government contract. With more, here's our Gillian Gray.
Put up or shut up.
That was the F&M chairman's response to claims that Bahamas fast ferries, which Prime Minister Dr. Hubert Minnis has an interest in, is supposedly vying for a government contract. During recent House proceedings, the Prime Minister defended his interest in Bahamas fast ferries after opposition member Glenys Hannah Martin called on him to address the matter. Culmer today reiterated statements by former Transport Minister Frankie Campbell, who said the government has no contract with the company.
I'm unaware of any contractual agreements that the fast ferries have had or have with the Bahamas government. So if you have any evidence or any whatever, put it up. But the thing is, as we all know, this is something that the Prime Minister did not hide. He also, when he declared, we knew that he had minor shares in the fast ferries.
Opposition leader Philip Davis said although Dr. Minnis said he is not involved in the day-to-day operations of the company, he still believes the Prime Minister should have done what St. Anne's MP Brent Simonet did and come to the House to declare his interest once the matter was brought to his attention. Culmer said the opposition is simply doing its job, which is to oppose. However, he insisted that in this matter, they are grasping at straws.
They're doing their job as an opposition. They're stirring up and pulling at straws and throwing up Hail Marys. But at the end of the day, the people of the Bahamas will see that it's best to have the F&M government governing this country than have the PLP, because you would see much progress moving forward with the F&M.
The F&M chairman added the PLP is trying to embarrass the government.
You would see that anything that the PLP can grab on and they could try to embarrass the Prime Minister or his government, they would do that. But the thing is, there's all up and place to deflect on what they have done in the past or how they left the country.
Reporting for Our News Weekend, I'm Jillian Gray.
All right, thanks a lot, Julian. Former Aviation Minister Glenys Hanna-Martin is agreeing with the Prime Minister in his promise for a review into what occurred following the plane crash involving pilot Byron Ferguson. Hanna-Martin says there are too many unanswered questions that need answers. Our Kyle Joaquin reports.
As the search continues for 34-year-old pilot Byron Ferguson and the 6-seater Piper Aztec plane he was flying that went down in waters off Havana Beach more than 2 weeks ago, eyes are now on the review promised by Prime Minister Dr. Hubert Minnis into what occurred in the minutes and days following. It's a move that's gotten the blessing of the former minister responsible for aviation.
I believe that it definitely requires some form of inquiry as to protocols, as to things that should have happened that didn't happen, things that happened that ought not to have happened. Something I definitely agree with the Prime Minister that an inquiry must be conducted because too many questions are coming out of this situation.
In a statement, the Prime Minister ordered a review of the protocols, procedures, and agencies involved in search and rescue efforts. He said, "I've instructed that all resources are brought to bear to ensure this investigation is handled properly." Minnis said once completed, experts' report will be made public and examined by the government to determine whether changes to the country's air disaster response are necessary. Minnis said he will make no comment on the operations until he has received a full report from the Ministry, Defense Force, and other relevant authorities. He added the government will then consider and take any corrective measures that may be indicated by the facts. Hanna-Martin said hopefully the many unanswered questions would be answered.
And sometimes that's what happens in these aviation matters. Unfortunately, you learn from tragedies. So I don't know, I have no idea what has transpired, where the investigation is, what the issues are, where the failings were. I mean, we are external observers and we have our view about some things that seem pretty patent and obvious, but there is an investigation.
But Hanna-Martin says she hopes this review doesn't get the same outcome as the Prime Minister's promised probe into Bahamas Power and Light. Now,
as I've said, the Prime Minister has promised inquiries before. He did it most recently at BPL, and we now know, at least to now, it has not materialized. But I'm trusting that he understands it's a matter of necessity in this case.
For Our News, I'm Kyle Joaquin.
Well, that brings us to our first break, but still ahead tonight. As airlines pull out, Western Air says it's ready to take on the difficult Grand Bahama air market. The story and more when Our News returns.